What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Cardiac K, and we back here with another video on the channel. Hey guys, editor Cardiac here from the future. This video was recorded before I was able to upload the Assassination Classroom video, as originally it was blocked in numerous countries and I had to fight and blur things out to see, for you all to see the version that you've seen so far. If you've seen that video, it was my latest video. I hope that you guys check it out. And for that reason, this intro to this video is going to be a little bit weird, but just bear with me. Hope y'all enjoy the video, and peace. First things first, like we do around here, I want to thank everyone who's been watching my videos lately, and for anyone who's new here, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy the video. First and foremost, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or my nerd commentary, nerd content videos, and make sure to comment your opinion down below. If you have a strong opinion on the video, have some recommendations, some suggestions, or just share the same unreasonable love for Cwebb that I do. I dropped a quick video earlier this week, so go and check that out. Yeah, that's that, and on to the video. First things first, I want to briefly talk about the career of Cwebb. First of all, Cwebb was a guy who, coming out of college, was a highly touted prospect, highly scouted prospect in college, as he attended one of college basketball's most prestigious institutions at the time, in the University of Michigan, along with Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, and the rest of the Fab Five, who were very famous for being such star freshmen and underclassmen during a time when college basketball was dominated by a lot of 3-4-year players. This was an era to where Christian Laettner, the 4-year player, Duke dominated, and Grant Hill was next up in the NBA after spending 3 to 4 years in college. This was during the UNLV run when them and Larry Johnson were on top of things in college basketball. So seeing 5 freshmen come out in 1992 and push it on was an amazing sight to see, including but not limited to their stance on how college athletes should be regarded when it comes to the public and potentially getting paid or getting endorsements, and the whole thing about wearing black socks because they didn't want to endorse Nike or whatever when they weren't getting paid for their name, image, or likeness. This Fab Five went on to be synonymous with college basketball at the time, and at the face of that was Cwebb. Now, going past his college, because honestly, that's irrelevant. Who cares about Michigan? It's Michigan. We head to the 1993 draft, in which Cwebb was selected #1 overall by the Orlando Magic, who had just recently drafted star big man out of LSU, Shaquille O'Neal. Now, partnering up Cwebb, who himself was a 6'9", 6'10", 200+ pound guy, to put next to Shaq made complete sense, actually, as Cwebb was too undersized to play center, so there's no conflict there, and his game wasn't necessarily dominating the post. He was a little bit more athletic, but the thing that would have aided him on any team and would have been the most important thing to him playing with Shaq was his elite, at the time, level of playmaking compared to other bigs in the NBA and college basketball. But sadly, as we all know, Shaq didn't really get to experience that, as he wanted Penny Hardaway to be on his team, and for that reason the Orlando Magic made that trade. It's where they traded Cwebb to the Golden State Warriors for the #3 overall pick and Penny Hardaway, and Cwebb's career was changed, to say the very least. Going on from this, Cwebb would go on to have a career where he was a 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA player, one of the greatest passing big men ever, one of the best power forwards in the hardest era for power forwards or just big men in NBA history, honestly, at the time, playing with other people at his position like Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and countless others during the late 90s and early 2000s that would make his dominance, honestly, in that era on the par with some of the legends that we know in the game of basketball today. Now, one of the downsides to his career was that Cwebb was never the Iron Man that other players in his time period were. He was never the defensive anchor that Tim Duncan was for the Spurs for almost 2 decades. But despite the injuries, despite some of the setbacks, Cwebb was a pivotal part on 2 different franchises in building those franchises, honestly, with the Washington Bullets / Wizards and the Sacramento Kings, to where he would lead both those franchises to some of the highest heights they've seen in their franchise's history. In addition to innovating along with the Sacramento Kings in 2000 From 2000 to 2003, an innovative style of basketball during a time when iso ball was heavy, even in the front court with power forwards, and ushering in a new era of ball movement and offensive scheming into the NBA. Now, on to the beginning of his NBA career in Golden State, where he would spend only one season due to disputes with the head coach at the time. In this rookie season, we would see Chris Webber put up averages of 17.5 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal, helped anchor a defense with a 104 defensive rating, which was tied for the best on the team, and led a top 10 offense for a team that had been dealing with injuries to their star, Chris Mullin, who was missing Tim Hardaway for the remainder of the year, and had a relatively old-fashioned coach in Don Nelson, and was able to get that team to the playoffs for the first time in a couple seasons. Now, as I said, due to disputes with Don Nelson, he only spent one season as a rookie, even winning Rookie of the Year with the Golden State Warriors and getting traded to the Washington Bullets thereafter. Now, early on, we can truly see the downfall to Chris Webber's career, as through the next 2 seasons on the Bullets, he would only play 67 out of the potential 164 games. But even in those games that he played, he still went on to average 20 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, and when he finally was healthy in the 1997 season. Together with his former college teammate Juwan Howard, Chris Webber and Juwan would lead the Washington Bullets to their first playoff appearance in almost a decade in 1997, while Chris was averaging 21 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.8 blocks for the next 2 seasons, while even shooting 35% from 3 on 2.5 attempts. The team had gone from 21 wins to 39 wins to 44 wins, and Chris Webber was at the very helm of that. You see, the thing that made Chris Webber so great even during the time of legendary big men, like I mentioned, Karl Malone, Tim Duncan entering the NBA, Kevin Garnett entering the NBA, Dirk Nowitzki a year away from entering the NBA, was the fact that he was a face-up big. One of the first bigs that were mainly effective out of the face-up game, in addition to one of the better passing bigs in the era. That, in addition to his pioneering of starting to take threes as a power forward slash center, as a lot of time, especially in Washington, he would play center when Juwan would miss games or when Juwan was sitting, and they would play a small lineup with Chris Webber at the center. Being able to shoot 35% from 3 on a couple attempts was very much needed in the year of 1997 or 1998. And this is a thing that I don't think Webber gets a lot of credit for in retrospect of his career, as there have been a lot of conversations over the past few years of does he truly deserve a Hall of Fame spot, as he's been up for consideration since I believe around 2013-14. Considering all of that, his pioneering for the game, just his unique style in an era of isolation ball or bully ball in the paint, one or the other, not choosing both, and being honestly good and very effective at both of them, while becoming the franchise player for Washington for several seasons, despite injury problems. And during this time, we see that Chris Webber is very effective, regardless of the situation that he's in, regardless of whether there's a Juwan next to him, regardless of whether he's coming into a relatively established franchise with a Chris Mullin. Over his career, he's had a 108 offensive rating and 102 defensive rating, proving that he is getting things done on both ends of the ball in an era full of very high quality bigs. Now, after his final year in Washington, we see that Chris is traded to the team where he would make his mark on the NBA once and for all, in a trade where he would get traded for Mitch Richmond to the Sacramento Kings in the summer of 1998 and become the franchise player that they needed all along. Going to Sacramento was amazing for Chris, as after the 1999 year where he would struggle with injuries all year, he would come back rejuvenated in 2000 and sit his rightful place among the superstars in the NBA, finally being a part of a winning situation, a winning culture that is willing to build around him completely and utterly, with year after year the Kings accumulating more and more talent and rearranging their rosters under Rick Edelman to supply their new franchise player with a team that was capable of becoming a top 10 offense and defense within the same year, scoring the most points per game from multiple seasons in the early 2000s, and a team capable of winning 60 games in 2 years, and for 3 straight years going toe-to-toe with the champion Los Angeles Lakers every year from 2000 to 2002, and Chris Webber was the man in the middle for that. The team that was put together around Chris in Sacramento was a team that honestly was kind of ahead of its time. Peja Stojakovic coming over to America after playing in Greece in the year of 2000, I believe, combining his size at 6'10", 6'9", with amazing shooting, especially for the time, shooting over 40% on almost 4 threes a game, if not 5 threes a game year after year, would be amazing to put at the small forward position next to Chris Webber, as although Peja was not a defender in the slightest, he didn't play defense. Those Kings, that was the one weak spot on defense. The absolute weakest spot was Peja. I love Peja, but he's never played a lick of defense in the NBA in his life. But regardless of that, he was still a good piece to put next to Chris Webber on the offensive end, as it gave one of the better passing big men of the era a shooter to kick it out to if he was double teamed or just in the face-up opportunity, running plays off ball, a floppy set, and then Peja comes, or he's in the corner, and then you have a down pick for him to drift off, and he kicks it to him in the corner. And these plays happened all the time with that Sacramento system, and especially the acquisition of Mike Bibby and the signing of a Bobby Jackson to come off the bench, the securance that Vlade Divac gave as the big man center, who was also a very, very good passer, almost creating the greatest passing front court in NBA history, gave that team passers at just about every position on the court, and a relatively deep bench with Scott Pollard coming off the bench, and then you had Hedo Turkoglu, who, although was a rookie or a young player at the time, but provided something off the bench. All these pieces would culminate in the Sacramento Kings having their greatest years in franchise history ever under the helm of Chris Webber. And although yes, by the year 2005, Chris Webber was basically flamed out, and yes, he was not efficient at all in 2004 or 2005, and like I said, by 2005, he was basically washed, getting traded to the Philadelphia 76ers, and then the Pistons, and then he would sign with the Warriors in 2007 to announce his retirement from the game of basketball altogether. But even in this short 14-15 year career, we can point out a group of years, maybe 7 to 8 years, to where Chris Webber was truly one of the tops in his position year after year, some of the most legendary names that we've heard at the power forward position in the NBA. And yes, I'll also point out another negative with Chris Webber's lack of playoff numbers, especially compared to his contemporaries. Now, there's one thing that you can say about Dirk. He didn't make the finals. Basically, he only made the finals 2 years in his career and was losing to teams year after year that honestly he shouldn't have been losing to sometimes. But Chris Webber had multiple series where he was shooting under 40% from the field, and multiple playoff runs where he was shooting under 40%, and was easily disturbed in the playoffs, especially when the game would slow down in the later rounds. His high turnover rate and sometimes just sitting in the mid-range, ball dominance, I guess you could call it, not necessarily over dribbling, but just sitting there at times, and including that with his fragile frame, and it didn't look well for him a lot of instances. But honestly, I think the positives outweigh the negatives, considering the fact that, from a majority of that time, his name was in conversation with Dirk. If you ask a multitude of people at the end of the 2000s who would they rather for the entirety of the decade, Dirk and Chris Webber were a conversation. Yeah, Dirk had, the scoring and the amazing versatility on the offensive end. Didn't have the passing that Chris Webber had. He wasn't the defender that Chris Webber was, and Chris Webber arguably hit the same heights as him when it came to postseason success, despite both of them having their troubles. And considering the fact that Chris Webber arguably made 2 franchises within the span of a decade with Washington and Sacramento, because Sacramento wouldn't have traded Jason Williams if it weren't for Chris Webber being there. Peja wouldn't have been maximized if Chris Webber hadn't been there. Not to say that it was because of Chris Webber that Peja was this legendary shooter or anything. He would be amazing regardless. But Chris Webber's passing out of the post and out of the mid-range area, the high post, whatever you want to call it, did definitely open up Peja for more catch and shoot opportunities, as he wasn't the greatest ball handler, but he was still very capable. And I believe that with Chris Webber and Vlade Divac and the trade for Mike Bibby, gave Peja some confidence or gave Peja some opportunity that I don't think that he would have otherwise, and wouldn't be able to maximize his potential without him. And I think, considering all of this, Chris Webber's career gets very underrated in the context of NBA history. I honestly believe, and this was sparked by the debate by the stream last week between Legend of Winning, TSO Sage, and B-Souls on Legend of Winning's Twitch channel, where they were ranking the next 25 greatest players of all time after the 50 greatest, and Chris Webber wasn't up for consideration in that list at the very end, at least. And I believe that, yeah, he's one of the 75 greatest players of all time. I think that Chris Webber goes very underlooked, and considering the fact that during that time, what he did for those 2 franchises and the names that he was competing with in that era, I think that his career goes very overlooked when it comes to the general basketball discussion. But I'm rambling on at this point. I just love Chris Webber. I don't know. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm stupid. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. I want to know what some of you guys think. I really want to get some feedback on this video, this opinion that I have. I've had it for years. I've had it for almost, I think I've almost been watching basketball for a decade now. And I for some reason, Chris Webber was one of the first NBA players that I went back to watch film on very, very early on, for no reason. There was no reason. But that's gonna be it from me today. I hope that you guys have a good day. I hope that y'all have a good one. Check out the other videos I've been dropping. The quick video on Chainsaw Man and Tokyo Revengers. I'll leave a like, subscribe, comment, all if you're new, if you're old, if you're in between, and I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all have a good day, and peace.